There have been some studies, and this is where it's founded off. I mentioned it briefly. The American church is responsible for, the number is some like $5.2 trillion in finance and assets every, that kind of level.
Yeah.
It's like one of the largest like subgroups and financially most prosperous, which I think would make sense in some regard if people are serving God, that there is a blessing of God that is upon them.
Right.
There's also, as I've talked about, common grace, where God's just good to people that don't even acknowledge him, So when they extrapolate this study out, there was not too long, again, you could Google this and look it up for yourself and find the facts and figures. But it was like the church could deal with like world hunger. It could eliminate world poverty, world hunger. It could eliminate, water issues around the world, clean drinking water. It could eliminate health issues. It could eliminate, housing crisis. It could. The truth is, as I read this report, like none of the government programs that are out there would even be necessary.
Yeah.
Because it would already be taken care of by the church. And let me just pause and say this. I know this is a very idealistic sort of view. Like that's just, you're just being an idealist. But here's the thing I believe about idealism is like my ideals are tied to something I know to be true, even if they're not experienced.
Yeah.
And like in my gut, like my knower, I'm like, if this would happen, that would happen. Like this would be the result.
Yeah.
The world would be transformed because of Christianity.
Right.
And the thing was, and then it was like at the end of all this money, just tithing off of it, they were like, there would be $139 billion a year left over.
Right.
Because they would continue to address those issues. Although if you address them,
it's one and done. I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you start eliminating water issues. You don't have to come back every year.
Right.
So I would imagine in theory that would grow, but there was some, $140 billion-ish a year left over to figure out like, okay, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
And I think you could become very, very, positively proactive with that. So I think God has a plan. And I think it's just whether we want to participate. And again, I think the biggest problem, I was talking to some folks, in just passing conversations.
Yeah.
And they were talking about people who are like, well, I don't give because of that. And I see those people and they don't give. And, and all of these, the church and, well, I don't, and they didn't. And all of these reasons that have nothing to do with God or a theology of what God expects of me as a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like all of these secondary issues that I have a bone to pick. And I get it. Like some of them are I get it.
Right.
Like, no, that's true.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change. Like if I go back to scripture and begin my, theological implication of giving with God, what is the nature of God? What's the character of God? What's the experience? What's the demonstration of God?
Right.
And then what is his command? What is his expectation? What is his promise? If I just walk through that and live my life off of that, I would have to come to a place of saying, God expects me to honor him with my wealth.
Right.
Everything I have belongs to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so start there instead of letting all these distractions take you out. But I do think if the church would just get a hold of this, like, then it would be a game changer.